Hello, Wolfpack. What's going on? Today, we're talking about my favorite game played in January, along with several other games. Actually, this was a very game heavy month, which I cannot ever complain about because it was amazing. And I also today am wearing a brand new Bloodstone shirt by Drew City Games that sent this over. It's not a sponsored video, but if you want some cool merch like this, I'll go ahead and link it down below. James, thank you so much for sending this over. Absolutely love this shirt. It's the same material as my Wolfpack shirts too, with the Bella canvas, so it's super soft and comfortable. Hope you all are having a fun time and enjoying the content that's been coming out lately, like the Mythwind back-to-back commercials. Been having a lot of fun solo plays with that, and I definitely need to log that in too. I actually forgot to log in my solo plays of that. But let's go and start off with my very first game to start off the year, and this one actually I played with my niece. This is Takanoko. It is a classic worker placement tile laying game where you are pretty much trying to build a little mini network of like bamboo forests and eating bamboo and having it rain and dealing with weather. It was a really fun entry level game that got me a lot more into the hobby as well. And I really wished I backed the luxury edition, the one where it's like the bamboo sticks are this big or something. Is crazy. But let me tell you right now, my niece is super into board games right now, and it's so satisfying because she is loving every single game that I introduced to her. And I think it's almost time to introduce Duel Links to her too. She's 7, by the way, so I don't think she's fully ready for it yet, but we can try because she's learning some pretty harder games too. So next game that we played at 2 players, played this one with Jackie, and this is Septima. Now Septima, you are a witch trying to avoid a witch hunt, and you're pretty much gathering a lot of resources, and you're moving around the map to help heal different patients. You also are using different elements to your advantage and casting magical spells, and you can even convert yourself into an animal, which is freaking cool. I've never seen that before in a game, and I think they do it really well here. The only thing about Septima, though, for my first playthrough, is that I feel like the witch hunt is a little too like forgiving. It needs a stronger or more severe consequence because like if you get caught by the witch, nothing really happens too much from it. And I wish it was a little more severe. That way it feels like you should be actively avoiding the witch because it's pretty easy to avoid the witch hunters. So yeah, Septima, it was pretty fun, but definitely need a little more time to see and cement my thoughts on that. And then game number 3 to start off the year was Brass Birmingham. The one legendary game that took over, I think it was Gloomhaven on the BGG charts. It's funny because this is the one game where not Birmingham, but Lancashire was the one that got run over by a car. Long story short, I was trying to take pictures with it and it fell off my car and another car ran over it. But I managed to save the poker chips and I did have it for Birmingham, and I had a lot of fun with Birmingham because how this game works is you're pretty much constructing a network of like coal and iron, and you're trying to connect these different railroads together in order to create this industrial system. And I love your player board because it has all of these really fun upgrades that you can have for your factories and everything. And from our initial play, I can definitely see me enjoying this a lot more. So I'm definitely gonna give some more time with it because I feel like we butchered some rules there. Despite the rulebook and despite me watching several how to play videos, for some reason the mechanics aren't fully clicking here, and there's a lot of like little nuances that you have to pay attention to while playing Birmingham. Game number 4 was Bark Avenue. I had some new friends over to introduce some games to, so I figured Bark Avenue, because they are very big dog people, was such a good hit with them. They loved it, but ended up being, they asked for an easier game, yet they understood this game like that. It was super easy to learn for them, and then they wanted something more difficult than that afterwards. So I'm like, okay, let's play Dwelling. So of course we got Dwellings played this month for the first time ever with the playmat too. And what I love about game nights for me is that I usually always set up a game underneath and on this beautiful Rascal's table here. And then on top we'll put the leaves and I'll put another game on top. So for that particular day, it was Dwellings fully set up with the playmat. And then right on top, it was Dog Park. That way, once we finish Dog Park, take it off and we go straight into Dwellings. It saves a lot of time for them when they're here. So they had an absolute blast with Bark Avenue. If you are a dog person or if you just love worker placement, you're gonna love that game. And trust me, Bark Avenue, super fun. 2 days after, we got to play a lot of 4-player games, and here's where we got the meat of this month, where we got the really fun games played. We got Ice played at 4 players. You all know how I feel about that game. If you haven't seen my thoughts about that, well, it was on my top 5 list over there that you can check out. Ice is such a neat game, and I will be covering it for the second reprint expansion coming up very soon. So very excited to talk to you all about that. And then my favorite game of the month. So Thunder Road Vendetta, I've mentioned this game a lot on my channel, but basically you're racing a car and you're trying to cross the finish line first, but there's just so much wild play interaction and it's just a very chaotic, fun time. And I love that you're controlling 3 cars. Recently, we've had Heat, which I thought was phenomenal. And then an upgrade for that for me that I thought was Dungeon Cart, which I also thought was amazing. And then we have Thunder Road Vendetta, which I feel like just keeps escalating on mechanics that we've grown to love in car racing games. So the fact that you can control 3 cars and that you can have a motorcycle team and a big rig truck team and these asymmetric drivers, there's just so many fun things packed into this game. If you all have not tried out Thunder Road Vendetta yet, you need to, okay? That is a must try game for sure. So that was definitely my favorite of the month in January. And it's reigning supreme right now. And then after that, we pretty much are going down my list of the top 5 games of 2023. So from there, we also got to play Raw. I feel like this one really cemented my thoughts about Raw too, because we love, in general, I think the only other auction bidding game that I played is Keyflower with like a specific auction centered mechanic. So Keyflower was one that I played before, and then Raw, like several years later, is another fun auction bidding game. So if you like auction bidding games, you would love Raw, especially with the production that 25th Century put on it, because you got this giant wooden meeple. All these tiles are so luxurious. It almost makes you rethink playing board games again, because I'm like, am I playing a board game? Because everything is no longer made out of cardboard now, and everything's like acrylic and gold coins and metal, and I'm here for it. But it's just funny to see how much our hobby has just grown, seeing all these luxurious items being implemented into our games. Now that it's a point where it's almost a standard to see those kind of materials being used. So very, very cool. And then the game that we finished off that night in 4-player game was Root. I think, what did I play as this one? Now in this game, it was the rats, the cats, the bluebirds, and the Woodland Alliance. And it was the very first time that I've ever won as the Marauders, so as the Red Rats. Oh my god. I finally figured out how to actually play with them, because for the rats, if you ever played Root before, they're the latest expansion, and they are very hyper-aggressive, which fits me, right? I'm super hyper-aggressive when I play like any combat-oriented game. But for some reason, I just could not get their engine going, and now it makes sense because I think I'm a little too trigger heavy in that I expand too fast in the beginning. In reality, what helps is if your rats are just in one stationary spot, right? You're in one clearing and you just keep building up your forces there and you slowly expand. And then what's really cool about the rats is that they have a mob, and the mob spreads like wildfire, and you cannot control where the mob goes because you roll a die, and depending on what that die, the suit that the die shows, that's where your mob is going to expand to. So once I had a full-fledged force in one clearing, it literally spread like wildfire. I think that's how they were meant to play to begin with. So when I had that engine going, absolutely unstoppable, and I took like 6-point turns, like 3 in a row. So that was game over. And one of the very, very rare times I would win in game of Root. So in the following games I played as the Bluebirds, also took the win for that. I was on a roll that day. Again, very rare for me to actually win games in general, especially Root, because I'm always like just very lost in my head about things, and I kind of circle back on the same points over and over, and I just end up experimenting too much. That's what I end up doing with Root. I experiment too much, and I still have a ton of fun, of course, but I think I don't like try to win. More so I try to see how to min-max my faction, and I'm kind of just doing my own thing and just attacking endlessly. In that game, it was the Lizards versus the Keepers versus the Vagabond, and it was such a close game of the Keepers versus Lizards. But the thing about the Lizards is that they gas out at the end. And once you know how to work their rituals and what cards to not give them, the Lizards really fall through very easily. So ran out of gas till the end, and then the Keepers luckily are very consistent, for me at least. So got to take the win by a margin, by like 2 points. And that was another fun game of Root. God, I like love that game right now. After that, I got to dust off a game that hasn't hit the table for a long time, and that was Honey Buzz. Introduced my niece to that one as well. It was a little bit harder for her to learn, of course, because the act of just triggering your engine is a little confusing especially for like younger players, but it was so much fun and she had a blast. How this game works is you take your bee and you place it on a certain tile. And then when you place it on the tile, different actions happen. So it's honestly like Dwelling's Light with no combat, because once you place the bee there, you take a tile and then you start building out your engine, which is very Dwelling-esque. And the engine only triggers once you complete a specific shape. And then you can take your bee out to go gather pollen and different types of nectar. And once you get those resources, you turn them in to fulfill orders. And that's how you score points in this game. Most points wins. So that one, I like purposely let her win sometimes because then she enjoys the game a lot more. So that was really fun. There was Honey Buzz. And then the next one we played after that was we finally got Banton West to the table. I know exactly what Bond's gonna play. So I'm gonna play this card right here. And I guarantee you, she's gonna fall right into my hand.
He's inside my head. He's inside my head.
And my God, I didn't realize how much faster paced Banton West is in person because we did cover it, but we covered the prototype. And that was also like for a tutorial. We didn't get to do like a full gameplay run through of it. My God, we played a 3-player game with the designer, Ike himself. And Ike, if you're watching this, it was a blast playing with you. And I just didn't realize how fast-paced that game really is because yes, there are a lot of rules, but there are a lot of like case scenarios that don't necessarily take place just yet. And we played in Shadow Governor's mode too. So we played like the full thing and it was just so seamless, especially since like we were already familiar with the game too. So it was a really fun experience and I cannot wait to get the final version of that to my table because that's gonna be really fun to introduce to players too. January 13th, I got to dust off yet another older game in my collection, and that was Merchant's Cove. I got to play as the blacksmith, which is still my favorite character out of all the professions, out of all the merchants that we have in there. And it was the blacksmith versus the alchemist. Alchemist, however, my friend this year totally demolished me with the alchemist. Completely obliterated me with that. I feel like everyone that I play games with are just so incredibly clever and smart. They pick up games so quickly. And here I am, like learning games on my own. I'm like, man, this is taking me forever in a day to learn. But it's so much fun playing with incredibly talented people. I think I'm late on the pledge manager on filling out the big box pledge with the new professions like the detective. And I think there was like a chef or something, or baker. I forget who the new professions were in the brand new Merchant's Cove, but I cannot wait for that one and for Bardwood Grove too. Especially after John Gets Games just released the playthrough of Bardwood Grove. It looks so much fun. So I'm definitely adding that on to my pledge as I fill out the pledge manager for the new Merchant's Cove. So I did end up playing Root like 4 more times, another round of Thunder Road Vendetta. There were 2 more new to me games that I played this month. And the first one was the Fox Experiment. They made it so much easier that I watched Before You Play's video on this because it made our gameplay so much more seamless. And I feel like the mechanics clicked in very easily. How the Fox Experiment works is you are ultimately trying to gather up a pool of dice, and these are going to be like your traits because you're ultimately trying to breed foxes. So the theme, I absolutely love the theme of this game, but I feel like I think everyone enjoyed this game much more than I did, and I don't know what it is about it just yet. I feel like the gameplay for me, it seemed a little bit kind of almost like work instead of play. Want to premise this by saying this has only been one playthrough. I gotta say it every time because then people will take it a little too literally. But I've only played this once, okay? And in that first playthrough of the Fox Experiment, I felt like there was a lot of upkeep in terms of all the numbers you had to calculate out for your traits. I low-key think that this game tricked me in that it is actually a roll and write. So Jenna, if you're watching this, I have something else to tell you too a little bit later, Jenna. But first off, if you're watching this, I felt like I am slowly easing into the world of roll and writes, and the Fox Experiment was definitely one that pushed me a little bit more over the edge to that. So I definitely was tricked into realizing that this is roll and write later, but again, there was a little bit more upkeep than I was anticipating. So that was the Fox Experiment, and the last new to me game was Bitoku. As soon as I played the first round of Bitoku, I instantly ordered a wooden insert from it too because I knew that this game is going to be a staple in my collection. I really loved all the fun decisions that you can make, and my brain hasn't hurt since playing Lisboa when I was learning through Bitoku because Bitoku is a lot. There's a lot going on, a lot of iconology, but it is pretty. I feel like it flows very, very well once you understand exactly what you're doing. It's a matter of the amount of choices that you have available to you. Like even for me, who is not very AP prone, I was thinking a lot about my turns because there were just so many ways that you can go. And that's what I also loved about it too, because I love multiple paths to victory. This one, however, almost seems like endless. There were so many decisions that you can make, and I really, really loved the playthrough that we had. 4-player Bitoku. A little bit long at 4 players. It might be more favorable for me to play at like 2 to 3, but I definitely want to give it another shot at 4 too, just to see how it goes. Last but not least, to wrap up the month, we also got to play Steam Up again with my niece, because those are like the types of games I've been introducing her to, like Steam Up, Honeybuzz, Everdell, like all those fun, naturey, fantasy-themed games that are a lot easier to learn. And the last game that we ended up playing in January was actually Thunder Road because, again, my favorite of the month. Just pure fun chaos. And I just can't rave about that game enough. So yeah, let me know what was your favorite game of the month. If you had to pick one game you played in January, tell me what it was down below. I would love to hear about it. And yeah, thanks for hanging out with me as I talk about and chat about these games that we got to play in the very first month of 2024. February, however, is looking like a little bit of a lighter month. I know I'm not going to get practically any games played in March either, but I definitely will be doing a February wrap up because at least in between the client work, I will have some other games played, and I really want to get a review of Black Rose Wars, depending on the votes on Instagram too. Like, I'll let you all decide. And to wrap up this video, check out this clip.
Whoa, we got Wolfpack in the chat. Ooh. Aroo, aroo. Tim, I expect on the next video, you must end your video with aroo, aroo. Aroo, aroo. You don't have to do that, Tim. But it'd be funny if you did.
Look, Jenna, I'm usually a very yes person. Once people ask me something, I'm like, yeah, I'm down for it. Let's go. But this one time, I gotta say no because I'll leave it at that. I'm never doing that ever again. Jenna, that was just for you. I'm done.